A tale of two countries. That's the focus of tonight's angle. I know some conservatives are worried that we've gotten off track. They're fretting about Iran. They wonder what happened to America first. Social media is hyping conservative infighting, fears of a midterm wipeout. So some of you may be thinking, what was it all for? Look, I'm not underestimating your concerns. I share some of them. Trump is taking some big risks, but with big risks come great rewards. Eliminating the Iranian threat is a gift to future generations. But in the meantime, look, we'll see how it all works out. But in the meantime, I'm choosing not to panic. After all, no one on God's green earth has a better political sense than Donald Trump. He didn't become president of the United States twice and come this far to blow it all on a lark. So why not take a deep breath, step back, and reframe our thinking? Now, right now, no Western country is freer or more prosperous or has a brighter future than the United States. And for that, you can thank the policies of Donald J. Trump. Now, for simplicity's sake, let's compare ourselves to our neighbor to our north, Canada. In 2015, they got Justin Trudeau's version of progressive governance, and we got Trump's populism. And even with the Biden interregnum, America has surged past them. Start with income. Americans are dramatically wealthier than Canadians, and the gap, that's only widening. Even Canada's own press has to admit that Canada, on average, is poorer than, wait for it, Alabama. Well, they're not tied with Alabama. They're behind Alabama. Same population as Alberta, but lower unemployment, stronger industry, and more production in Alabama. Today, we learned that Mercedes-Benz is investing $4 billion in the state, with more than $7 billion planned across U.S. operations. Wow. So Canada's losing jobs to the deep south of America. The same deep south, by the way, that snooty Canadian elites love to look down on. And Canada's response is apparently to sell out to the communist Chinese. They're opening their automobile market to Chinese EVs at preferential rates. What could go wrong? Canada has gone from declaring China as their biggest security threat to this.
I believe the progress that we have made in the partnership sets us up well for the new world order.
New world order. It's the worst. So this is kind of Carney's way of sticking his finger in Trump's eye.
Canada doesn't live because of the United States. Canada thrives because we are Canadian.
The old relationship we had with the United States, based on deepening integration of our economies and tight security and military cooperation, is over.
This is suicidal. Now, imagine thinking that your economic lifeline would come from a communist regime. At what price, Mark? But Canada also has a literal death wish. They're killing off their undesirables. Of course, they're not alone in the euthanasia market. Spain should be ashamed of itself as well. These are not policies, by the way, of a hopeful, culturally vibrant, spiritually intact society. Of course, if you disagree with any of this, you think it's demonic, you better watch your step, though, because you might find yourself at odds with the Canadian Human Rights Commission. Remember how Pretty Boy Trudeau treated the Canadian truckers? They were punished for their activism until a court stepped in and reversed Trudeau's harsh move as illegal. And while we all laugh at the silly land acknowledgments in the United States, I'm standing on stolen land kind of thing, in Canada, it's become so important to them that they're even talking like the King of England did, well, when he was speaking to Parliament.
I would like to acknowledge that we are gathered on the unceded territory of the Algonquin and the Anishinaabe people. This land acknowledgement is a recognition of shared history as a nation.
But those land acknowledgements aren't just virtue signaling. It could turn into land seizures. Canada is signing an agreement with a Musqueam Indian band recognizing their territorial rights, while one law professor is telling the CBC News that this doesn't involve the transfer of private property. People in Canada are on edge big time. that eventually it's going to come to that. I wouldn't doubt it for a second. Conservative leader John Rustad shared this letter on X that was reportedly sent from the mayor to the homeowners in Richmond, British Columbia. It says that your property is located within the claim area. The court has declared Aboriginal title to your property, which may compromise the status and validity of your ownership. Yeah. Think about that next time you hear Democrats doing their own land acknowledgments. And on the immigration front, their problem is even worse than ours. Populations are rising faster than housing supply. Costs are going up. Systems are under strain. Now, a major province is considering separation. That's how well things are going up north. But heck, at least their progressives have their priorities straight. What happens, by the way, when an actual woman cuts in line ahead of a fake trans woman at one of their conferences? Well, they throw down their gender equity cards.
I was standing here with my gender equity card before you called on the previous speaker. That's my point of privilege.
This card was used in an inappropriate manner. And while I understand in Ontario we know this is equity, even if this was also used inappropriately in terms of gender. These cards for individuals like myself who identify as a Black woman have no value outside of this space.
I'm dropping my gender equity card and raising you to woke. I mean, it's crazy. But you could actually imagine that happening, right, in Mamdani's New York or Karen Bass's LA. After all, they're much closer to Toronto than Trump. And the results? Look at this headline from today. New York City job growth stalls as migrant influx continues. Or how about this one? LA County leads nation in population loss as California growth continues to stall. Yikes. But still, red state America, it's going in the right direction. Texas, Alabama, Tennessee, Mississippi, Florida, South Dakota all have expanding industries and are all attracting new residents and new investment. Again, thanks to President Trump's trade deals, investment is soaring in places where investment is welcomed. So, look, while we conservatives, we don't have everything we want, we've accomplished a lot. We stopped the trans invasion into girls' sports, which a few years ago seemed impossible. Abortion is no longer a constitutional right. Roe was overturned after 50 years. That's thanks to President Trump's court picks. So, in sum, enough of the pessimism. I can't take it anymore. If you love freedom, if you love opportunity, the American way is the only way forward. So pray for victory in Iran, pray for our military, pray for peace and healing everywhere.